to Today's Tomorrow. I'm Kapaya, and tonight we're starting with a question that is incredibly simple. But the answer isn't. What do you do with somebody who has nowhere to go? Because that's what we're talking about tonight. Not for 5 minutes, not for a political soundbite, not for somebody to stand up in Parliament, give us 3 talking points, and blame the other side, then walk away. We're talking about homelessness, we're talking about public safety, we're talking about businesses, people, we're talking about police, we're talking about government. And we're talking about a piece of legislation that has already generated a pretty serious debate across New Zealand. Move on orders. The government says the legislation is about dealing with disorderly behaviour in public places. It says police need more tools. It says businesses, residents, and visitors deserve safe city centres. And to be fair, that's pretty reasonable. People should be able to walk down their own streets and feel safe. Businesses should be able to open their doors without dealing with intimidation or disruption. But here's where tonight's debate gets a bit interesting and a bit funny. Because the bill specifically includes behaviours such as rough sleeping and begging within the circumstances that can lead to a move on order. And that leaves us with one question. If somebody is sleeping on the street because they have nowhere else to sleep, where are they supposed to go? Another street, another park, another doorway, another suburb, another town? Seriously. Because if all we're doing is taking somebody who is homeless already and making them homeless somewhere else, then what exactly have we fixed? Really, what have we fixed? Now, before anybody jumps to the conclusion that this program is saying that people should be allowed to behave however they want because they're homeless, no! That is not what I'm saying. And that's not what this debate should be about. If someone is threatening another person, if someone is assaulting somebody, if somebody is damaging property, if someone is genuinely causing disorder, there should be absolutely consequences. Being homeless doesn't give anyone a free pass, but being homeless shouldn't automatically make someone a criminal either, should it? And that's where I think the conversation becomes difficult. Because there is a massive difference between saying this behavior isn't acceptable and saying your existence here isn't acceptable. Those are two very different things. And tonight we're going to look at where that line sits. We're going to look at the legislation. We're going to look at the government's argument. We're going to look at the opposition. We're going to look at police. We're going to look at businesses. We're going to look at housing. And most importantly, we're going to look at what actually happens to the person standing on the pavement after everybody else has finished arguing about them. Because this is Today's Tomorrow. I'm Kay Paya, and this is our first live episode. And I'm going to discuss these problems. The Move On Bill is our first problem. And let's be real here. The Move On Bill needs to be gone. Let's begin with the legislation itself, because before we start throwing political labels around, we need to understand what we're actually talking about here. The phrase move on order sounds straightforward. It almost sounds harmless. Move on, keep walking, go somewhere else, but legislation isn't words on page. Legislation creates powers, and when the state gives police a power to direct somebody to leave a particular area, or a particular place, that power has consequences. It affects the person receiving the direction. It affects the officer enforcing it. It affects the business owner who wants a safer environment. It affects the people walking through the area. And it affects the wider community. So we need to ask what problems the law is actually designed to solve. Is it disorder? Is it begging? Is it rough sleeping? Is it intimidation? Is it antisocial behavior? Or is it a combination of all those things? Because those aren't necessarily the same problem. Someone sleeping in a doorway isn't automatically threatening somebody, is it? No, somebody asking for money isn't automatically committing an act of violence, are they? No. Someone who has nowhere to live isn't automatically a danger to the public, are they? No. But at the same time, somebody can be homeless and still behave in a way that genuinely threatens another person. That's the distinction that matters. The law needs to be capable of identifying conduct, because conduct is what people experience on a day-to-day basis. If somebody is aggressive, threatening, violent, or deliberately obstructive, that's one issue. If somebody is simply sleeping because they have nowhere else to sleep, that's another issue. And if the law treats those situations as though they're identical, we need to have a serious conversation about whether we're addressing behavior on simply removing the problem or making spaces safe again. And that's the first major question of tonight's program. Are we dealing with a public safety problem? No. Or are we dealing with the visibility of homelessness? Because those are very different things. And as I am seeing right here, where are homeless people supposed to go? Now let's take the argument away from Parliament. Let's take it away from Wellington. Let's take it away from political parties. Let's put ourselves on the street. Imagine someone has nowhere to sleep. They don't have a house. They don't have a spare bedroom. They don't have enough money for a motel. They don't have family nearby. They don't have a friend who can take them in. They may have spent days trying to find somewhere. They may have contacted agencies. They may have already been turned away. Eventually, they find somewhere they can sleep. Maybe it's a doorway. Maybe it's underneath a bridge. Maybe it's a park. Maybe it's behind a building. It's not comfortable. It's not glamorous. It's not what anybody would choose. But it's somewhere. And then somebody tells them to leave. Okay, where do they go? That's the question. That's the question I have for you. Now, where should they ideally go? Not where would we like them to go. Where do they actually go? Because if there isn't emergency accommodation available, telling someone to move doesn't create accommodation. If there isn't transitional housing available, telling someone to move doesn't create transitional housing. If there isn't permanent housing available, telling someone to move doesn't create a home. All it creates is a movement. And movement isn't the same thing as progress. You can move a person 10 meters. You can move them 1 kilometer. You can move them across town. You can move them into another suburb. You can move them into another city. But if they're still homeless at the end of the journey, the underlying problem remains. And that is why this debate matters. Because enforcement can change what a street looks like. It doesn't necessarily change what a person's life looks like. Public safety. Come on, people. We care about it. I know. But now I want to give public safety a proper kudos to you. You suck. It's a proper place in the conversation here because there's absolutely no public safety issue whatsoever